We're waiting for another member of the committee. We don't have a quorum yet. Dean,
You got enough people sitting around the table.
thank you for your observation. We hadn't noticed that. But not the right people around the table. Don't have enough of the right
The one that has just been into the minor changes. But it's a whole
Dr. Ellis,
Yes, sir.
when you finish this meeting, could you you didn't send me that email, did you?
No.
Okay. Give me a call when we get done. I'm in another meeting someplace else. So just give me a call when you get a chance, would you please?
I will.
Thanks.
Rita, Dean and LaShawn should be trying to get on. I know.
I don't know if I can do that because I know.
Again, they will be ready.
Good evening. Welcome to the policy committee. At this time, we have several items on our agenda, so we'll go right through. I apologize for our late start. But the first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Any corrections or changes to those minutes? Hearing none, I declare the minutes approved as read. Just for to make sure we have a quorum, I'd like to call the roll. Lane Dunn. Here. Sharonda Bullock.
Here.
Jade Edwards.
Here.
Zach Gray. And Evelyn Bullock. We do have a quorum. So we will begin with our first policy agenda, which is policies that have been previously approved by the board that lay on the table for 30 days, but we never actually went back to finalize the approval. So we will do those policies first.
Ms. Bullock,
Yes.
can I jump in with a clarification on this? So I think it may be easiest to deal with, the only one that we really need to deal with tonight is policy 3460. And the reason is it hasn't gone to the full board yet. It was reviewed by the committee in June and was recommended to be sent to the board, but because of some summer and things like that, for some reason it didn't get added to the full board's agenda. And so what we have tonight for 3460 is we have that policy is back in front of you with some additional edits to the policy. So what I'd like to do is look at that policy with all the edits, including the ones that the board has already looked at, as well as the new edits. And I think the version of the policy that has all of that in there is actually in item 4 of the agenda. So I would recommend that we just sort of look at that along, in conjunction with all of those other policies that need that have substantive changes.
Okay, but just from my notes, I have that we actually presented policy 3460 on at our policy meeting on June 14th.
Yes, ma'am, we did. And so what happened is that never got approved by the full board.
We didn't ever get it to the board.
It never went to the full board. And so what happened is when the School Boards Association sent the full sent additional edits for the fall, they had new edits to policy 3460. And so they've sent that to us with the fall edits and last spring's edits included in one document. And so I think we can look at it along with the rest of those policies, and I can point out which edits are the new edits. And then I think what the board needs to do is review that, is to vote on that one separately. I think there needs to be a motion to withdraw the previous version that was recommended to the full board, and then the committee can vote to approve this new version with new edits to go to the full board.
All right, and what about 3102?
3102 you don't have to worry about because the board has already approved that one. It is back before the committee this time, but with one very tiny small technical change, and it's already included in number 5 of the agenda. So really, I think that this agenda item was added maybe for us to have this discussion, but I would recommend that we not look at these particular policies right at this instant, but we look at them as they come up in agenda items 4 and 5.
And then we go back down to the next item on the agenda. Okay, all right? I can get back. Please, gentlemen. I can't read the agenda from here, so I'm sorry about that. What does it say? Number 3, what policies are the?
3 is 3102 to 3460, but I think
Okay,
she
what-
said to move forward. There we go.
And then we move on to the next item, item number 4 on the agenda. Who's taking care of that?
So we started with school safety, and that will be me. If you will, get an opportunity to hit that red button. The little track changes, ma'am. Thank you. So what they are recommending that we do is pull out or it's required, I think, to pull out the COVID-19 spread part, since that it's sunsetted, I think, in July. And so now we're required to follow the strong schools toolkit as it relates to COVID. So just simply pulling this part out.
That's policy 1510, 4200 and 7270.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, questions about this? All right, then policy 2120. Benefits for school board members.
Yes, ma'am. So the edits here are in policy number, the section number B. If you could just scroll up just a little bit on that one. So essentially, these are just edits to require that the board members comply with all board policies that set expectations for conduct, regardless of whether the policies expressly require that board members comply with them. So it's just an edit to make sure that board members are have a requirement to comply with all board policies. I think that is the only edit. Can you scroll down just a little bit on that one, please? Keep scrolling for me. But I think that is the only edit for this policy. And there's one small little nit edit there in the very bottom, but other than that, that is the only edit.
Can you make that writing a little bit bigger on this end? That is better. That's even better. Thank you. Are there questions about this policy? Okay, the next policy is 2123. Board member opportunities for development. You showing that? Is that you, Lindsay?
That's me. It's a very simple change. Essentially, all they're doing is they are replacing the National School Boards Association with the Consortium of State School Boards Associations, given that the North Carolina School Boards Association is no longer associating with the National School Boards Association.
Other questions? Okay. Policy number 3220.
And
That's technology in the educational program. Is that you, Dr. Farrell?
yes, ma'am, I'm gonna step in and do my very best.
All right.
So in this policy, it updates the language throughout the policy to align with the North Carolina Digital Learning Plan for 2022. And so that's done throughout this policy. So there's substantive changes here to make sure that that alignment takes place. If you look at the second paragraph and looking at the area where it says the curriculum committee should provide suggestions in the curriculum guides referenced in policy 3115, curriculum and instruction guides for integrating technological resources as defined by section A below into the educational programs. So in that second paragraph, it's aligning to our policy 3115 as it relates to curriculum and instructional guides. And then there are legal references that have been made. And then there are resources that have been updated.
Are there questions about this policy?
Yes, ma'am.
You have questions, Dean?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to know who exactly is the curriculum committee.
That would be Miss Nancy Smith and her team.
Did you
Okay.
hear him?
Yes, ma'am, I did. I'm just processing everything, I'm just checking in on some stuff. That's all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there other questions? All right, then 3420, student promotion and accountability.
And I will leave that one. And Sarita, if you could go ahead and move to page 7 under section N.
I'm sorry, Miss Nancy Smith. Ms. Bull, I apologize. Can you go back to the previous policy? I
Yes,
apologize.
Rita, can we go back to 3220?
We've had a discussion with Dr. Ellis about bring your own devices. It's down to C. Go down to C. Yeah, right there. Currently, as things are, we do not have a stated policy that explicitly says that a student can't bring their devices, but we do not have one that says that they can either. Our expectation is that students use the technological resources that we provide them because of our firewalls and the security measures that we have in place. And so I guess, Lindsay, the question is, do we need to put something specifically in policy that says that the expectation of students and staff is to use the devices that we provide them? That way we know that the firewalls, the security measures are in place.
So Dr. Farrow, I would say that if you all do not have a bring your own technology program, then I don't know that you necessarily need this language.
So do we need to just strike C?
I mean, if you all don't intend to have a bring your own technology program, then SEED isn't really applicable. So again, I need to check one thing. I want to look at the references for the North Carolina, the digital teaching and learning competencies, to see if there's any kind of requirement in there that you all need to have such a plan, or that you at least need to have some language. But the way that the policy is worded is that the superintendent is authorized to investigate and develop a plan. I don't know that it's necessarily mandatory, but bear with me 1 second. I don't think you need to have that in there, and especially if you don't have a program, then I think it probably makes more sense for you to take it out.
Okay, so we would like to remove C from this policy.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, but on this one where it talks about devices, obviously that can be expanded into just about anything these days to include cell phones. Could that be related back to cell phone usage, and not just for students, but also for teachers in the classroom?
And Lizzie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is speaking specifically to computers used as instructional devices.
Yeah. And you all have a separate policy on the acceptable use of technological devices in the district. So you have a separate policy that relates to that.
And I see a little bit difference between the two in that we provide computers for the students, but we don't provide cell phones for the students. So I think that would be two different things, because you would only be talking about the staff, whether teacher or TA or whatever the position, with the cell phones, and we don't provide those.
Yeah.
Oh, and I agree, but people can get inventive with the words electronic devices. That's all.
Yeah. And I would say, if you have concerns about it, you all can look at your technology, your responsible use policy, your technology responsible use policy. But what I would say, I just took a quick look at the North Carolina digital learning plan, and I don't see anything that says you will have to have a bring your own technology plan. So my recommendation would be that if you don't want to do that, then you should delete section C.
Thank you.
So what we will do then, with 3220, when asked for a vote, we'll vote on that one separately, simply because we're deleting a section of that policy. The others hopefully will receive as presented, but when we make the presentation to the full board, it will be included in our recommendation. But for today, we will vote for that separately because we're doing something totally different in that. All right. Now, you finished?
Yes, ma'am. I'm finished.
Oh, I'm done.
I'm finished for real.
If you want to go back, we'll go back.
Okay.
It's the end of the meeting. Now, back to the standards.
Well, it's one part because she didn't remind me to bring it up.
All right. policy 3420.
Thank you, Sarita. If you would start at page 7. And if I would like to draw your attention to section N. And the language has been updated to align to the new general statute, which is 115C-407.12. And it specifically speaks to the interstate compact with military families. So basically, what this general statute is saying is that when permissible, school districts should make concessions for promotion standards for our military families because of the barriers and hardships that transitions can impose on these families. In addition to that, the legal general statute also extends to families who are inactive in the National Guard and Reserve. Also, there are legal updates at the end of on page 8, and we would like to accept the substantive changes as recommended by the board.
Not having a base nearby, do we have many military families in our system?
I don't think we have a lot, but sometimes we do have some. Not a lot, but we have some.
Are there other questions? Okay. Policy 3460.
Yeah, I'm coming with that one. There's still
I think
some-
that's me. All right, so this is the one we just talked about that is sort of, so there are a number of red line edits. Some of them you have already approved, and I'm not going to talk about those. I'm just going to point out the new ones, and then I'm going to tell you what I think you'll need in your motion. And I think this is another one, Ms. Bullock, that you're going to want to vote on separately. So the edits here are primarily the same as the last policy that we just looked at, that have to do with the compact on educational opportunity for military children. So if you see right here on page 1, you have a reference to the North Carolina general statutes implementing that. So that's one of the new edits. And then if you'll scroll down, please. Okay, actually, I think we may have the wrong version pulled up. Keep going. Scroll down a little bit more. I am not sure that this is the right version. Hang on one second. Okay, yeah, if you'll scroll down a little bit further, sorry about that. Scroll down a little bit further. Okay, so here in subsection 3, there's just an addition here to allow the application of these requirements to any students, entering 9th grade for the first time, 21-22, and any time after that. And there's a similar edit in section 4, I believe. No, maybe not section 4. Keep going. All right. So I think the next edit is, here, section 6, that there's that similar edit. If you'll see, these requirements again apply to any student from the last school year and any school year following that. So 2021-22 onward. All right. So then if you'll scroll down a little bit further. Keep going. All right, so here under this subsection 3, again, these are edits that are similar to the last policy that we just looked at, that reference the children of military families policy. And so we've added those as well. And I think that is the last new change. So if you'll keep scrolling. Yeah, there's a change to the legal reference, and that's it. So essentially, if the board if the committee would like to adopt or recommend adoption of these new changes, what I would recommend is you have a motion to I guess withdraw the recommendation, the previous recommendation, the June 14th recommendation to send this policy to the full board, and instead replace it with this policy and to send this amended, edited policy to the board instead, if that makes sense.
Did we ever, so we never actually presented, 3460 to the full board.
That is correct, Ms. Bullock.
Okay, so, I know we had this discussion the other night, but if the committee now can say we don't want to make that, recommendation and add this one to our new list without doing it separately, can we not?
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's all you need to do is simply just say, we're gonna withdraw our previous recommendation and instead we're gonna recommend this version.
Okay. Are there questions? Dane, Sharonda?
No questions.
No, ma'am, I don't have any questions.
All right, then, 3620, extracurricular activities and student organizations.
Yes, ma'am. In this one, it's just a few modifications. Right there on part A, striking through the grievance procedure and making some changes as it relates to the school administrators choosing to exercise their authority and strict participation based on additional policies such as attendance and requirements set forth by the superintendent and the principal. So this is not just for athletics, this is in extracurriculars. And then as you go on down, it talks about the athletics, but it is reflecting what it was just North Carolina High School Athletic Association. It has the State Board of Education as well. Page 2, no modifications. And 3, just a few terminology changes as it relates to the military families instead of just military children. And we had just previously discussed some of that. And then the interscholastic athletics stayed the same, and scrolling down, no changes on 4. And then 5, just the references made some modification. And all of that we were recommended from the state, and they meet all the standards as well.
Are there questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, can I get back 1 second, Mr. Barrett?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were I'll turn around.
In the previous one, 3460, I meant to ask the question. Was that thereafter capitalized? Was that T capitalized? In those 2 instances thereafter? 3 and 6 or whatever it was?
Yeah, I actually, Ms. Bullock, I think you're right. Good catch. We probably need to make that a lowercase.
That doesn't need to be a lowercase.
That needs to be a lowercase. All right. Sarita, I'll shoot you a little email after this and let you know what we need to make changes to.
Okay. Those are the policies with substantive changes. Now we're gonna look at policies with minor changes, and that would be policy 2130 and policy 3102. So 2130 is board member compensation and expenses. Who's doing that? Lindsay. So Lindsay does the board stuff. Gotcha.
All right, I'm muted. I get to do the board stuff. Yep. This one is very minor. That's why it's in minor changes. It's all the way down at the bottom. And it is a change to the legal references, I believe. Yep. Just some edits to the legal references. That's it.
Okay, other questions? 2130? All right, then policy 3102, online instruction. Who's doing that one? Is that you, Melissa?
Well, actually, Lindsay shared that she would take care of all minor changes.
All right, Lindsay?
Yeah, so this one again, so the language, Sarita, I sent you the one that needs to actually be uploaded.
Okay.
So the language in section B, that is language that has already been adopted by the board. So don't worry about that. The only thing that is new on this one is under legal references. It's just that change to the legal reference. And so what we'll do is we'll make sure that what gets uploaded to the agenda is the correct version. But for y'all's purposes, the only thing you need to look at right now is the legal reference piece.
Other questions? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on these policies then. Let's see, policy 3460 and policy 3220. I need a motion that, well, we need them separately. 3460, I need the consensus of the group. I don't think we need to vote on it because it's not gone anywhere. That it's okay that we withdraw the recommendation to ask for, to recommend to the board that they approve the policy. I think that would be sufficient. Lance, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'll make a recommendation that we,
No, we're not gonna do the motion. I think if you just, by consensus,
oh, yeah.
if we agree, because we've not actually done anything with it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Fine with me.
All right, Sharonda, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yep, that's good with me.
Dean, is that okay? Dean?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, it took a second to get the mute off.
Okay, and then the other policy, 3220. I need a motion for that to remove section C on that policy.
Make a motion that we, recommend,
No, we need to do this. It's not the recommendation to the board. We just need to agree to, remove section C, and then we're gonna go back and vote on it. Is that it?
I make a motion for policy 3220 that we remove section C in regards to bringing your own technology.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we remove section C from policy 3220. Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Aye.
I heard the 3 ayes and I made the 4th one. Okay, thank you, motion carried. So now we will go back and we will vote on all of the policies that we talked about. Yes,
Zach is on that. If you need to
Zach,
hear from him.
Mr. Gray? Mr. Gray? I see you, but I can't hear you.
I think he just.
He left. Oh, that one, okay. So we'll go on and vote for these policies and to recommend to the full board that, they be approved, and that's policy 1510/4200/7270, school safety. Policy 2120, code of ethics for school board members. Policy 2123, board member opportunities for development. Policy 3220, technology in the educational program. Policy 3420, student promotion and accountability. policy 3460, graduation requirements, and policy 3620, extracurricular activities and student organizations. Policy 2130, board member compensation and expenses, and policy 3102, online instruction. Is there a motion that we recommend to the full board approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we, recommend to the full board approval of the policies I just read off. Is there any discussion? Hearing none,
Any of these need to not sit 30 days.
well, since nobody said anything, I assume that they didn't need to sit 30 days, do they?
Or to waive that period.
Wait the 30-day, okay, it's fine that they go the full route then. All right, Lane,
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Sharonda,
Yes.
Zach, are you back? And I am a yes. Motion carried. So we will present these policies, to the full board. Now, the other policy that we need to talk about is, policy number, what is it, 6316 that we talked about at the board meeting, and, Dr. Ellis.
So I'm gonna make a recommendation that we table this policy for right now. I talked to Ms. Bullock today, and some of the questions that were asked of me at the board meeting, I need to make sure we get the correct information to the policy committee, because between pay and overtime compensation and some of the things in the past, I had some conversations with some. So I had a conversation with the TA, I met with the committee, met with senior staff, and I think that if we could table this until we get everything straight and how everyone's gonna get paid, what it looks like, I would rather just table this for right now. And then the committee possibly next month, we could come back and share with the board what it looks like and unveil it that way. But I don't feel confident right now. Just because it's that.
And when I talked with Dr. Ellis, I agreed with him. I think before we proceed with, this policy, we do need to have all our facts so that we can answer questions and we'll know what we're actually saying and voting for. So I agree with him completely. Does anybody else have any comments on this?
It's a question, and for those of us that weren't here when this was last visited, Evelyn, can you just kind of share what the pitfalls were, or what it sounds like it did not go well. And so if we're looking at this again, maybe just knowing how what the issues we faced last time, why it sounds like we pulled back or changed it would be good information.
Well, one of the main issues that I received a lot of emails about and phone calls was the issue of being paid 40 hours versus 37.5 hours. And from what I can determine, I had someone check their check for me, and they were not getting paid for 40 hours. And before we can step out as a board and say we're paying our TAs for 40 hours, even though they work 37.5, we need to know that as a fact.
That it can be done.
That it is being done, because I joined this board in 96. And it's been a long time ago. But when I joined the board, that's one of the things that I heard even way back then, or soon after I got on the board. So I think we need to know what we're talking about before we do anything. That's my main thing. I think we might look at other ways of getting bus drivers from the TA staff. And I think that's something we might want to look at. Dr. Ellis suggested, not, requiring, all full-time, all current TAs and that classified employees, I use that word, to be bus drivers, but we kind of, put some caveats to that. And I like that, so I think we need to have more discussion on that. And one of the things, just for you to be thinking about, Dr. Ellis, is to see what we could do if we required future classified staff to be bus drivers and ask for volunteers from the current one, from the current employees, to see if that gives us what we need, rather than demand that everybody gets a bus license.
Grandfather, so, yeah.
I would think grandfather,
But
all of them who, except those who volunteer, it would be based on a volunteer basis. And I also think too, when we do that, we need to have some kind of incentive for particularly those people. And I think that would make it a little bit more palatable if they can see a difference in what I would get if I were forced. But if I volunteer, what's in it for me above and beyond?
So back when it was policy, an issue was that they were told they were going to be paid at a certain rate, I guess including overtime. That wasn't the case.
It seems like with conversations I've had, that it kind of fluctuated. Sometimes it wasn't, sometimes it was based on. We don't know. That's why I told Ms. Bullock, to me, I just want to start ground zero and figure out how we do this right. Because it seems like we're getting paid, some we're making overtime. It's a double dipping issue is what it was, but I just think we need to study it more.
And that's one of the reasons back in the day, years ago, we had people clocking out from their TA position and clocking in for the bus driver position to try to balance that. But evidently that wasn't working really well either.
Was that because they were a TA at when we're having to drive?
Could have been.
Might have been,
Could have been.
might have been, or there was some who just plain didn't want to drive the bus.
Madam Chair,
And that too was an issue. Yes, sir, Mr. Shaw.
I have a question because I'm interested in this item as well. This is something, it's like a political football. We're kicking it down the field. Can we put some timelines on when we expect to have this information? When the superintendent and his staff can give you that information or timeline where they can tell you what their recommendations are. And if we got questions as far as what those issues were, if we resolved them, that's fine. And what they were and how we're dealing with those so we make sure they don't reoccur.
I think the superintendent just said at our next meeting.
We'll have a timeline with basically a scale of what it looks like and then when we can implement it. But in my opinion, you're going to have a timeline and doesn't just speak to the policy, but educate TAs on it. So what does this look like? And I think that might have been the issue last time where there wasn't enough education done. So instead of pushing the policy out, we'll create a timeline and we'll go from there. We'll present it. If you want to do meeting, that'll be fine.
And the reason I'm asking that question is because basically, like I read at the board meeting, we got 21, all the absentee and bus drivers and people calling in. That's not helping the scenario.
It's sticking on a license.
Right.
Yeah. But as I
Madam
said-
Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I just wanted to add to that, originally I was against it like completely. And I know the circumstances are what they are. And I think one of the things that is most important and the thing that I heard most was being very particular and careful about the wording.
That's right.
The conversation saying terminated. And I think Mr. Dunton brought that up as well. We need to be very careful and respectful. And I don't think the intention was not disrespect, but I think it was just to get to the point because we have a sense of urgency. But I just want to remind, as we work on the policy, to be very careful about how we word that, and being sensitive to the teachers' needs and respectful of their position.
Right. I agree with that. And to Mr. Sharp's point, as I said the other night, I recognize quite well the urgency. But if we do this and we don't have all the facts, and if we don't have good information, all we're doing is causing more problems.
That's right.
So I would rather we do it right before we get it all together, before we roll it out, so that when we roll it out, we can stand behind the product and know that we have done our homework and
That's
our
right.
due diligence, and we got it right to the best of our ability.
And I concur with that.
And that's the reason I agree with putting it on until next month. And now I will ask you, Dr. Ellis, will this be at the next policy committee, or will this be at the board meeting? I think
I
so
want to
too.
bring it to policy, but what we'll start doing is sending the board, when we do updates, I'll start crafting, our group will start crafting the timeline of what it might look like, kind of keep in the loop of what we're doing.
That'd be great. Okay. Is there anything else? Do we need to vote, Lindsay, on whether we, it's not on the agenda, so we don't really need to vote on it. Is that correct?
It's on the agenda. I think I think a consensus is probably fine. I mean, a consensus to table it is I think either a consensus or a vote, but I don't think you necessarily have to vote.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we table policy 6316 until the December policy meeting to allow us time to obtain additional information and review again.
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we table policy 6316 until our next policy meeting to allow time for further investigation. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, roll call, Lane,
Yes.
Sharonda,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
and I yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Zach's in there.
Zach, are you up there?
Sort of.
All right. Has he been allowed in? Zach, we can't hear you if you're talking, and we are about to adjourn. If there's nothing more to claim our attention, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Debbie.
I heard you say, unless you're wrong.
See, look at this.